Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Matters podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited about the conversation we're about to jump into. Today, we are chatting to Tarryn-Lee Pietersen, and she'll share a little bit more about who she is and kind of what she does. But I'll start with this: is that she's actually, one of us. She's part of the Jumpstart team. So I'm really excited. Tarryn, thanks so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Let's jump into it. Tarryn, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, what you're passionate about?
Cool. So I'm Tarryn-Lee Pietersen. I'm married. I'm 26 years old. As you heard, I'm part of Team Jumpstart. So I'm very much behind the scenes. So you may or may not have seen me before. I'm a project manager by day, my 9 to 5. And then in my spare time, I work with Jumpstart, which is a really cool thing to be part of. And then I'm also quite passionate about content creation, so mainly in fashion and gaming at the moment. So that's what I also like to just put some time into as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing and kicking us off. You mentioned fashion and gaming. Before we kind of jump into the content creation side of it, where did the passion for fashion and for gaming, where did those two passions stem from?
So that's an interesting one because I don't remember it actually stemming from anything besides just enjoying it in general. So for fashion, I think I've always just loved dressing up. But a part of that is that my style's quite evolved over the years. So it started out where I like to dress up, maybe it'd be a bit fancy. But now my style is quite evolved into something a bit more casual, I would say. And so I just really enjoying fashion, looking at what the latest trends are, dressing up. And that didn't really stem from anything specific. And I think it's quite similar with gaming, where I just grew up playing a lot of games. I started with a TV console, playing the Mario Brothers, playing board games with the family. And now I'm at a place where I'm playing PC games. I have a whole PC setup, I'm a Twitch streamer as well.
Before you carry on, what is Twitch? Because you gotta debunk the jargon for us non-gamers.
So Twitch is actually just a streaming platform. I think I stand corrected because I've just come into the Twitching world, but I think it's predominantly gaming. So a lot of streamers who stream the actual gameplay, but then there's also a lot of streamers doing a bunch of other things. So they literally stream, like if you watch a YouTube video, it's that but live.
Okay.
So they can stream any topic on Twitch as well.
So it's not specifically for gaming. It's kind of, you could, if you wanted to host a class online, you could use Twitch to
I'm sure you could use Twitch for that as well.
Okay, neat. I like what you said about you actually just started you enjoyed fashion and you started enjoying gaming, and out of that kind of came the content creation side of things, because I think we need to be really aware about the things that we enjoy doing. I think everybody's kind of searching for what's my purpose, what is my big passion in life, and I think a helpful starting place is to be curious about the things that you enjoy doing. So I thought that was quite a cool point that you made. But speaking about content creation, what kind of got you started kind of on the journey to it? What makes you really passionate about creating content? Because I will say that Tarryn is exceptionally consistent at everything that she does. I think that's just a marker of who Tarryn is. When you see Tarryn, you see consistency and always steady. But how do you why are you passionate to stay consistent with your content creation and to keep creating?
So I think the main goal is to stay consistent and eventually grow a bit more in my content creation. So that's the main goal. But I think what keeps me consistent is just that I enjoy the things that I'm posting. I think I see a lot of times people start to not enjoy what they're posting, or it's not something they're passionate about, and then they get tired of it, or it feels like it's more of a burden to them. And so I think if it's something you enjoy, you're posting about your passions, and it's not really becoming this much of a burden, then I think it's easier to stay consistent. So because I post about things like fashion and gaming, which are things that I just enjoy on a daily basis, it's a lot easier. So I'll get dressed up to go somewhere, and then I'll make sure that I create some content based off of that, or I'll play some games and I'll make sure that I create some content based off of that, and that allows me to stay consistent because I can make sure I'm doing it all the time, but it's not a burden because it's something that I really enjoy. And so I think it's just staying in that place where you're still enjoying what you're doing,
Yeah.
so you can be consistent about it.
Yeah. No, that's good. Thanks for sharing that. What role do you see content creation like playing in the digital space over the next 5 years?
I think that over, let's say, the last 5 years, but it could be longer, it could be shorter. But recently, I think social media has already grown so much. Digital marketing, influencer marketing, that sort of thing. And so I think it's just going to continue to go on this trend going forward in the next 5 years or even more. Because I think what brands and companies are especially seeing is that they don't need to now pay so much money for, just for an example, for a whole campaign or for an agency to do that work, when they can just get influencers or content creators to do that work for them. And then what they're getting out of it is quality content, but they're also getting the reach that each of those people have on social media, on their platforms. And so I think it's just going to continue to grow because companies are paying less, they're getting more eyes on their brand. And so they're seeing that opportunity and they're taking it with both hands at the moment.
Yeah. And then from, your content, the content that you kind of are producing, what is the aim of it? Content can perform particular like roles. So like content can be to entertain, it can be to educate, it can be to inform, it can be to engage. Like what role do you see like your content doing? Like what do you hope that your content will achieve in like the hearts, minds and lives of the people who engage with you?
I think on the fashion side of things, what I've always tried to do is share affordability and obviously style as well. So I don't normally gravitate towards like name brands and higher end brands that cost a lot. It's usually on the cheaper side of things. So maybe sharing where people can actually find style that is a bit cheaper. Sharing sometimes local brands as well, things like that.
Yeah.
And then on the gaming side of things, I think it's mostly entertainment, engaging community, because I think that's kind of big in the gaming world is community, entertainment. So people engaging with things that they enjoy seeing. So I think that's the main aim from my gaming content again, is just the entertainment and the engagement on that side.
Why did you choose, how did you choose that like avenue, particularly for your fashion content? Like why have you chosen to kind of create content around affordability and kind of showcasing what people can achieve within a, kind of with a smaller budget or within whatever their budget is?
Yeah, to be honest, I think it's just because I didn't have a lot of money for a lot of the time when I started posting the fashion content. I didn't have a lot of money to get a lot of clothes. And so it was like, where can I get stuff that are kind of trendy or are fashionable at a good price? And then starting to share that with others as well, so that they can see that there is other options for them. You don't need to like break the bank all the time if you can't.
Yeah. No, I love that. Thanks for sharing that. So fashion and gaming don't necessarily sit, in two worlds that often collide. But what I found really interesting about your journey in the kind of content creation space is that you've recently included like gaming kind of under your one brand. How are you navigating bringing those kind of two different worlds together? I mean, would you say that they are two very different worlds? Have you seen kind of similarities between those two worlds? What are the differences? But I guess the question is, how are you navigating bringing those two worlds together under one brand?
So it's an interesting one because I think they are very different. They are two very different worlds. And so I'm still navigating how to bring them together in the best way. But what I can say is that overall, I think my style is based on my personality as well. And so that kind of goes across both the fashion side and the gaming side. Like if someone has been watching me for years, they would have seen my style evolved into even more of a casual style. Like I wear sneakers all the time, or maybe I've been doing that all my life. Who knows? And so I think my style kind of goes across both, where gaming is quite a chilled thing to do. And so my style kind of speaks to that. But I think bringing them both together would be in a sense of like if a gaming brand has merch, for example, you know, wearing that type of clothing, what kind of style do I even wear when I play games? Because honestly, I'm not thinking about fashion when I'm playing games. I'm just like in a sweatpants or something. So I think that is where the two would come together. And I think it's just all about my current style and my personality. It already does lend itself to that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'm still navigating that space as well. So it's still trying to figure out what the best way is to bring those two together.
Yeah. What I find really interesting, or I'm noticing, I should probably say, is that in the world of you see like different brands actually coming together. So they don't necessarily produce the same like goods or provide the same services, but we're seeing this like cross brand kind of alignment coming together. If we look at these concept stores, we're now finding like a Seattle with a root bar in the creamery, kind of all occupying the same space, and they're setting up these different concept stores. I think we're seeing like Vida and Faithful to Nature also, crossing paths. And I just think it's so interesting to see how kind of things that they kind of fall in very different like brackets, but we're seeing these like brands who agree on like a value level. We're seeing them align and interact with each other, and I think it's really enhancing the just the overall like customer experience of engaging with all of those brands. And I think brands are on a trajectory to become a lot more like customer centric, placing user experience at the center. But speaking of user experience, now that kind of that word popped up, what has gaming taught you about user experience?
I think just that a lot of gaming brands, I think in the past they haven't been that much focused on customers, or at least from a social media perspective, they haven't been that much focused on customers and like, what do you have to say? What are you currently doing? It's mostly been like pushing my product. So just everything is about the product. But I think a lot now they are including content creators, or they are including people in what they are showcasing on social media. So they are including people's like what their thoughts, their opinions, their reviews. So it's a lot more customer focused, and I think from a user experience perspective, that's really been helpful for customers, because now you're seeing a real-time opinion, a real-time review. It's not just the brand pushing their product and you can't really see what others have to say about it. If you're talking about user experience on like their websites and things like that, I think that's always been quite key, I think, for gaming, or in the gaming world, just because when you're looking for certain products or certain components, or hardware, whatever you might call it, when you're looking for that, you need to have a good experience to be able to find what you're looking for. You can't have this like broken down website, or you can't have this no customer service or anything like that when you're working with such expensive products like a computer build or something like that. And so I think that is a very important part of the gaming world, I would say.
I do think that gaming can actually teach us quite a bit about user experience, because I think it's almost like one of the few, I think, like spheres or, things that started in an online world. So a lot of product and service started in a physical world, and now they need to learn how to be in an online world and engage with people kind of in a way that's brand aligned for them. But gaming started only in an online world, particularly speaking about like your PC, and I'm not a gaming expert by a long shot, so correct me and jump in if I'm like incorrect, but your computer gaming, or you're like, I don't know, console gaming, those were online virtual worlds. And I think that there's a lot that we can learn about. We can learn, particularly for those brands that are trying to, create strong online presence, create strong user journeys, convenient, human-centered user journeys in the online world, particularly if they started out in the physical world. So I think that's very, very interesting. And also the move to like gamify, like we're seeing all the, these new apps coming out. McDonald's a while ago, they've launched their app, and I love a McDonald's. The deals on the McDonald's app get me every time. My poor health. But what's interesting is that they actually how they like included gamification into their app. They had this thing called Whack-A-Mac, and you could I thought it was so cool. Whack-A-Mac, and you could win a McDonald's burger. If you whacked enough Macs in a day. But it's really interesting to see how gamification is even stepping in and is going to become a very key component to how brands build in the online world and merge their online and offline presence. So very interested to see how the gaming world is going to start informing that a little bit more strongly. I think that
also what they do really well in the online space, at least, there's a lot of like competitions and it's a lot of it is virtual, where they come together online and you kind of compete against one another, and that's like big events that you have to kind of set up. And so I think that's probably something that the gaming world also does really well. Maybe not particularly in South Africa. I think it's been quite small for the longest time in South Africa specifically. More internationally, it's been quite big, and so it's becoming much bigger in South Africa. But it's interesting how you said like a lot of brands are struggling or they're gonna have to now move on into the online space, because now the gaming world, they're also moving into the, let's call it the offline space, the real world, where they're actually doing competitions and events in person, which they have been doing for a long time. But it's quite interesting to see how that comes together in the real world, doing real life live events and things like that.
Yeah, that is very, very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. You said by day you are a project manager. Unpack that. What is a project manager? What do you kind of do? But what skills have you learned through being a project manager?
So being a project manager differs from industry to industry, I would say. But overall, you project manage. So you have a project, you manage it from inception to completion, so from start to finish, making sure that everything gets done within a certain time, within a certain budget, within a certain scope, as best as possible, and just managing the different parts that goes with that. And so I think the various skills that I've learned through project management is, that whole project management thing on its own is a skill, and then softer skills like time management, people management, relationship management, stakeholder management. There's just a whole lot of different spheres that fall into one. And so I think those are the main skills that I've learned through project management. I think a big part is just working with various teams and kind of keeping everything together,
Yeah. And what do you think are maybe like 3 ways entrepreneurs could benefit from the skills that you've learned in your role as a project manager?
Yeah, I think because a lot of them are quite soft skills, I think they can benefit a lot from those skills. And it's not necessarily a skill that only a project manager has. It could be quite easy to gain. And so I think things like I mentioned, the overall project management skill is quite a big one, because I think you can kind of approach a lot of things as a project, right? So for example, maybe you're going away at the end of the year. You can manage that literally as a project, and you could say like, this is the budget I need. These are all the people that's going to come. What do I need to make this a success? So I need to book. I need to have a budget in place. I need to arrange transport. I need to plan my meal plan for the week, And so if you manage that as a project, you put all these steps into place to make sure that you are well prepared for that getaway at the end of the year. And so I think if that's a skill that you have as an entrepreneur, whatever project you're going into, next, you kind of take that approach from the get-go, and you are less likely to find gaps going into that project. So let's say you're not someone who thinks about budget, you're less likely to go into a project and say like, oh my word, I actually don't have enough money to finish this project. I'm going to have to come back to this at a later time, because you've already thought about all the steps. And so I think that's a big one. I think time management is also a big one, just because if you are an entrepreneur, you're probably doing a lot of things at once, trying to get things off the ground, trying to get your business or your brand off the ground. And so I think being able to juggle a lot of things is something you're going to come into, and being able to manage your time, being able to manage your tasks as best as possible is going to be very important. So learning how to, whether it's working with a checklist or, working with a calendar, whatever you need to do to manage your time. I think a big thing that I've learned is knowing your urgent versus important. So
Yeah.
if you have a list of 20 things to do every day, what can you do? What is urgent and what's important? So what do you have to absolutely do by the end of the day, and what can wait till tomorrow, even though it's urgent? Because that's ultimately going to help with your mental health, with your stress levels, just to be able to not reach that burnout phase. And so I think that's very important. It's just understanding how to best manage your time, because everyone does it so differently. And then something that I do often is just work with a lot of people every single day. And so over that time, I've just learned how do you approach different personalities, different people, different groups, different teams, and for different reasons. And so if entrepreneurs, they're going into a space where they're going to have to deal with a lot of stakeholders because I need finances or I need help with my marketing, so now I need to reach out to different stakeholders. That's also a good skill to have, is knowing how to work with different people, because then you know, okay, I'm going to meet with a finance person. What are they interested in knowing from me? How do I approach a situation? So just knowing how to work with different people and different personalities is also quite an important one.
Yo, I thought that was so good, Taryn. I love what you said about knowing the difference between what is it, important and urgent. And I think, I think that's such a helpful skill, because almost like everything sometimes feels like everything needs to be done like within within like 1 hour. But being able to like lead yourself well enough to know that, okay, X, Y, and Z absolutely have to, come hell or high water, need to be done by the end of the day, and the other ones are more like flexible deadlines that I can move around. And I think that's really a skill that you grow, you grow into and kind of become better at. But I think that was a really helpful point, and something that entrepreneurs can really just learn from. But in your time with Jumpstart and engaging with different entrepreneurs, what challenges have you seen them face, both on the content creation side and on the project management side? Seemingly two very different, seemingly two very different kind of sides. But I think there's a bit more of a link there than we think. But what do you think about that?
It's literally similar to my previous answers, where I think project management is a big one, just because entrepreneurs don't approach them with a project in mind. So, like I said earlier, they go into it and then they realize they maybe don't have the finances to continue with what they are planning for. And so I think that's a big one. And then also the time management that I mentioned, just being able to prioritize and know what they need to get to so that they are able to achieve what they need to each day. And I think a big one that goes across both the project management side and the content creation side is the consistency. Because I think if entrepreneurs need to put themselves out there, especially on their platforms, so like on Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever they are, and get their brand out there as well, you need to be consistent. You can't have one post today and another post next week, and then in 2 weeks' time, you kind of need to have a regular schedule or some consistency so that people are constantly seeing what your brand's about, what you have to offer them, and they don't kind of lose sight of what your brand is. And so I think consistency is a big one that I see across both the project management / content creation side of things.
That's awesome. I definitely agree with what you said just around consistency in particularly like content creation and having like we should say like online presence or social presence. I think you kind of see like a lot of like stop starts, and I think that you almost like lose the momentum that you gain in your start, and then you actually like break some type of like trust with your audience when you go like radio silent for a month, and then you're like, okay, we're back, like next quote, next,
and they're like,
reel.
Oh, who are you again?
And then that education process needs to start again, and the people that you once brought on, who started following you, they've kind of forgotten why they followed you, and you maybe didn't like live up to the expectation that the precedent that you set when they started following you. So I guess yes, that consistency in keeping your audience engaged and informed, particularly if you're wanting to create a community about the things that you are passionate about. Community like centers in people and centers in engagement with those people, and I think being able to approach that with those skills that you shared about project management changes the way you look at it. It's not like something I do just because I feel like doing it. And I think we're all a little bit guilty a little bit guilty of not, staying consistent in that field. But I think these insights that you've shared really can help us understand why it's important, and these are some tools that we can use to be consistent, not only in our, the content creation space, but in anything that we actually are wanting to see move forward. So Tarryn, yeah.
One more thing to add, if I think I can just add to that a last point, I would think just overall planning is very important. A quote that I love to mention to every person I meet, this is probably the only quote that I know. It is, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And so I think if you don't have a plan in place, whether it's content creation or just anything in your entrepreneurial journey, I think if you don't have a plan in place, you don't really know where you are going.
Yeah.
And so just for example, it's content creation, if you have a plan for the next 2 weeks, you're most likely going to stick to that and be consistent. Whereas if you don't, then you're going day by day and you're like, oh, what do I actually share with my viewers or my customers tomorrow? And you're most likely going to skip that day.
Yeah.
So the same goes if you have a project that you need to do, or you're going into a new sphere with your entrepreneurial journey. If you don't have a plan, you don't know where you're going. So I think just planning is key before you step into anything.
Yeah, and I think also planning in the sense of knowing the point at which you want to take people with you on your journey, particularly in a content creation for social media, planning to document what my day is looking like. So you might not have planned the content beforehand, but you purpose yourself, okay, today I'm going to document what I'm doing, or I'm going to document how I go about offering my service or putting my product together. But I think it's that mindset shift to I'm going to purpose myself to do X, Y, and Z. Yeah. Tarryn, where can people find you? Where can they follow your journey if they want to?
So firstly, you can follow Jumpstart, because I'm on that team as well. You can also follow me on Styled by Tarryn. That's my Instagram and my TikTok, and also my YouTube channel, All Styled by Tarryn. My gamer handle for Twitch is TAYY_ZA. So you can find me there as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tarryn.